The reason I thought about this was Trump retweeted this video where this guy said white power. Did you see this video?
Oh, I saw this last night. Yeah, I
Right.
talked to Mikey about it.
Yeah, and I do think that's obviously a problem. He retweeted it. He did delete it. They said that he didn't realize it. I'm inclined to believe it. However, it is disturbing that there are people running around yelling that kind of stuff on video. Like, any race power is disturbing. And, insert race here power with your fist up
Yeah.
is disturbing. And I was, we've talked about this, Carrie, but the more that people redefine the term racism and the more that people just misuse it, it has two main effects. One is it's going to numb people to accusations, either accusations against them or against other people. So if someone says that person's a racist, a lot of people just discount it now. In fact, I think months ago I was hearing that it was in high schools it was a joke, like a joke insult. It was like, you're a racist. It was like, no one takes it seriously anymore. And it also sets up a false dichotomy that you and I have also talked about, where people feel like they have to be racist. You get to choose whether you're a racist for or against white people, and those are your choices. And a lot of people are going to get sucked up in that. And so I do think we're going to see an increase in actual white supremacy over I think it's going to get we're going to see actual more white supremacy. But the whole thing made me stop and think, because I've been talking, we've been talking, both of us, about individualism being the antidote. And I thought I would just walk people through something that I bet you haven't considered. Maybe some people have. I think most people, if you say, why is racism wrong in the first place, they don't have an answer. Because it's bad. Racism's wrong. I don't know. It's wrong. Racism isn't an edict. Like, there's no anti-racist edict from God. It's not a natural law of the universe that racism is wrong. It is wrong. But it's wrong under a certain moral system. The wrongness of racism is dependent on a particular moral system, and I want to talk about that for a moment.
Yes.
The wrongness of racism, it is only wrong in a framework of morals that recognizes individual rights. That's it. That's why racism is wrong. So we don't have to drive the whole framework, but you note that the framework for individual rights includes the concept of self-ownership, right? And that's articulated through, the right to think and say and do what you want to do, freedom of speech, the right to property, which is often overlooked as a corollary to self-ownership. But with self-ownership comes self-responsibility. You are responsible for your own behavior. But the flip side to self-responsibility is you're not responsible for the behavior of anyone else or things that are outside of your control. So if your spouse or your brother or your mom or your dad or your ancestors or your neighbor or other people in your town or other people in your state or other people in your country or other people, with the same shoe size or hair color or eye color or skin color or the same number of freckles, you're not responsible for stuff that they've done. You're only responsible for you. That's a consequence of individualism. And so your moral standing in society and your general standing in society, moral and otherwise, is derived from your actions and your actions alone, not the actions of people that aren't you, that share some trait with you. That's not a chosen trait. And that's why racism is evil, right? All forms of racism are belief systems that are based on judging an individual, judging their moral standing or their competence or their social acceptability or whatever by an attribute that's unrelated to their behavior. And right. That's actually all collectivism is that. Racism is just the narrow form of collectivism that uses the color of your skin attribute to do that, right? Right. But there's equivalent to racism, like if you go to Japan and you see there's a lot of hatred of Koreans. Is it racism? I don't know. We could argue over whether it's racism because it's not skin color related. And I guess they are kind of separate races, but they're very blended. But it's just as wrong. You might label it xenophobia or something else, but there's a recognition that it's violating the same basic principle as racism. And so you call it racism. My point here is that without the moral framework of individualism, there is no argument against racism. That's where that argument comes from. And what's happening around us, the reason that we're going to see people fall more and more into racist camps on both sides is that basically the entire government education system for decades has one of the most damaging things they've been doing is destroying the concept of individualism as a moral foundation. That's what they've been going after. That's their enemy, right? The communists knew this. We just read a book for book club. We just talked about it. The Nazis knew that the Enlightenment and individualism was their enemy. The communists knew it. Yuri Bezmenov talks about it all the time, or he did, right? And so
individualism is the antidote to collectivism. So collectivists, that's the first thing they attack. It's just with social justice warriors, they've been hiding it for a while. Now they are overtly. Actually, I saw Beverly ask this question in chat. She asked this in the last chat, and I didn't get to answer it. But she said, "Are they overtly attacking it now?" They are.
Yes,
they've been attacking it overtly for the past year. In New York Times piece, I mean, they're going after individualism, and here's their tactic. How can they make individualism seem bad? They're saying that it's white supremacists,
right? Yeah,
which is absurd and doesn't make any sense
racist,
because white supremacy is also collectivism. It's collectivism. Right. Collectivism is not individualism. So they're trying to say it's this other kind. We're collectivists, and individualism is this other kind of collectivism that we hate. No, that's only dumb people are going to fall for that. But there's a lot of dumb people out in the world.
Right. Well, that's. I mean, I want to point out though. In the mainstream media, maybe you've seen more overt attacks on the word individualism, but even in mainstream media, individualism has been attacked generally for a long time, and in academia, it's been attacked even longer. And so almost every philosophy class, almost every social sciences and humanities class is built on anti-individualist principles, has been for quite some time. This is why they idolize Marx. Marx is a collectivist, right? This is why if that version of Marxism didn't work, some other collectivist thing needs to move forward. They hate individualism. Government schools are designed for you. I mean, we just talked to Keith Bissett about this. I think that episode is actually coming out tomorrow, by the way. But government schools are designed to make obedient factory workers, basically, and obedient citizens. Like, that's what they're designed for, and it worked. I think they have succeeded in eradicating individualist principles as normal in society, and
they have.
That's what's dangerous, because now there is no defense against racism if you don't have individualism.
Everything. None. They've totally eradicated it, and now we're seeing it just take its mask off and overtly come after individualism. But like you said, they've been teaching this for decades. This is why anytime you hear somebody attempt to speak on behalf of a group the way that social justice people do, they come into a room and they're like, well, as a Black, queer, disabled woman, and they'll just start listing all these marginalized groups. It's like, when we interviewed Professor William Allen, I remember him talking about how his students, he would ask them to, introduce themselves, and they would all introduce themselves with these ridiculous identity characteristics, which are the least important thing about you. Right. I'm Carrie, and I'm a straight, white, cis woman, just going on. And that he said that he told them, he was like, no, tell me who you really are. To his students, tell me who you are. Why can't you define yourself outside of these groups? Like, why? But that, to me, that's evidence of how much it's taken root even before they get to college, that they've all been trained to do this. Look at their Twitter profiles. It's just a list of what groups they're in.
Look at the Christina Wong child zombie factory that we covered a while ago. Like, she's got little kids in there saying, "What are you? Here's your Venn diagram. You're Asian and you're female, and that's who you are, not who are you? Like, what do you like to do? What are you good at? What are you not good at? What do you like? Yeah. That's who you are.
That's how they train people.
Yeah, from little children.
From little children. And funny enough, in the Buck Angel interview that's coming out, I didn't mention this during the interview, Carter, but he reminded me of Professor William Allen when he said the same thing about trans. That they're being taught that trans is an identity, and he's like, and you asked him about how much of a part of his identity is, and it's like, that's not who I am.
Right.
People it's almost as bad as I think getting locked into your these categories that you're in, like these immutable characteristics. taking those for your identity is just as bad as, like, it's worse than taking your opinions for your identity. I think taking your opinions for your identities can be pretty bad too, because then you feel personally attacked when somebody disagrees with your opinions. And it's like, it's just opinions. It's not a personal attack. They disagree with your beliefs, you know? But I think taking these like whatever you were born, I think taking all those things as your identity is even worse. It's like,
Yeah.
and it handicaps you. Like when
Sorry.
I used
Yeah,
to
go ahead.
walk into a room as a social justice warrior, and after I got indoctrinated in college, every time I went into any encounter, I was like already setting myself up for failure because I was thinking about, oh, they're judging me because I'm a woman. And, I'd walk into the room and maybe some people were judging me because I was a woman, but not all of them. I automatically assumed all the time, oh,
As a
they
guy, let
get
me tell
treated
you, a
this
lot of
way.
them were judging you positively as a woman.
Yeah, well, I effed it up because I would go in with like low self-esteem because I assumed I was going to be judged. See, it gets into your head. It's a victim mentality. I don't walk into rooms like that anymore. I have
Right.
so much more confidence now because I don't walk in with this like victim chip of like, I'm a woman coming into this male space. It's like, no, I'm just Carrie coming into this space.
Yeah,
Anyway.
the thing that's funny about that to me, by the way, is that those women that walk in with chips on their shoulders, they're totally willing to they're totally ready to say that they get uh, bad things happen to them just because they're a woman. But if you point out that actually sometimes people treat you better just because you're a woman, they can't hear that either. Like
Oh, they can't hear it. No.
that's like, which is also true, I will say, as a guy who has been in engineering organizations predominantly run by men. A female engineer shows up. I mean, anyone who went to engineering school knows this. There's like a different hotness scale for female engineers. If she's a 6, she's suddenly a 10, and everyone wants to meet her and like talk to her. Like, oh my god, a girl. It's like there's deference, and you can use that to your advantage. And women do. There's misogyny. There's both.
There's
So
both. Euphoric Break says in the chat, as a former SJW, as a former SJW and a gay man, I saw homophobia and heterosexism everywhere. Yes, that's what they teach you to do, and so it's really handicaps you. I'm sure. I wonder if you have the same. You probably had similar experiences to me, where it's like they tell you to put on this pair of glasses and never take them off. And everything must be filtered through these glasses where you're always trying to and expecting everything to be set against you because of ism, right?
yeah.
But that's not living life to the fullest, and that's not operating in good faith. Are you going to encounter individuals who are homophobic or racist or sexist? Yes. But going into a situation and assuming everyone is such an awful, awful, messed up way of living, not just for the people that you're interacting with, but especially for you and the way it affects your brain and your self-confidence and your ability to get what you want out of life.